Hi, I'm Timothy Riley, and this is my video review of the Gskyer 25-75-75 spotting scope. Now, before I get into the features and the benefits of those features, let's talk about what these numbers mean. 25 to 75 is the magnification that your eyepiece will give you. So that's what the X is for, 25 to 75 times, and you dial it here in the eyepiece. 75 is the size in millimeters of the front objective lens. Now that allows you to gather more light. The higher the number, it gathers more light. So spotting scopes usually range from about 50 millimeters up to 100. So 75 is nice in the middle. As you get much bigger, they become heavier, more expensive, longer, and a little bit more difficult to carry around. So this is a good compromise size. Now here's a little closer view of the focusing knob, which is right here, and then the dial for our magnification. Now generally what's recommended is you start at 25, which is the lowest setting. When you're finding your object, it makes it a lot easier. When you have the high magnification, you're looking right, left, trying to find it. So start at 25. It's also a little bit easier to focus. So focus in at the image that you have selected. And then if you want it bigger, just dial it in. You might have to refocus just a little bit, but probably not too much. This is looking at the eyepiece. Now it does come with a cap, and it has here, it's pretty basic for an eyepiece. This is a little shade that it allows you to cut out the light. It's set up right now for people who do not wear eyeglasses. So if you wear eyeglasses, you bend back this rubber cup and it allows you to get as close as you can. So the glasses, of course, takes up the space, and then this dials that back. You cannot put the cap on, by the way, when this is in the peel back setting. So you put it right back on there. On the other side of the focusing knob is this little knob right here, and this allows you to loosen the mount that holds the spotting scope to the base plate. So when you do that, you can reorient it. So if you're at an odd angle, you can change that, but most of the time we're going to have it level. On both binoculars and spotting scopes, you have two different options for the way it's going to correct the image, right to left and right side up. If you look at an old-fashioned spotting scope, or they used to call them spyglasses, things would be reversed right to left and they would be upside down. So to correct that, they use what we call prisms, and there are two different types. One is called a poro finder, and that's what this is. A poro finder uses two sets of mirrors and they're offset, and then that's why this is over to the side. The other one is called a roof prism. Now the roof prism uses one set of mirrors, and they're going to be in the line with your optics. So it's going to look straighter and a little more streamlined. There's really advantages and disadvantages to both. Poro finders are a little bit less expensive. Prism finders are sleeker, but there are some things that you can't do with them, like they're very difficult to change the eyepieces. By the way, you can't on this particular unit, but on some you can. So it's not a disadvantage, just to say this is a poro finder. So now we're looking at the business end of the spotting scope, and you see we have a built-in lens cap, which is really nice because I'm always losing these things and hunting around for them. And also has a built-in lens shade. So that way, if your sunlight is coming at a more direct angle, this will create a little shadow, and that way it doesn't reflect off of your lens. And again, here's the 75 millimeter front objective lens. Now that we've gone over the basic features, let's talk about the way people would use this spotting scope. Now myself, I use it mostly for bird watching. I'll get into that a little bit more later. But there's several other purposes. One is astronomy. This is a very inexpensive and lightweight way for children or for younger people or even adults to look at the moon, the planets. It has enough magnification that you can see details of the moon, and you can see the planets and even some of their moons. Here's a couple other ways that people use this. One of the most common uses of a spotting scope is when one is sighting in the rifle. This way you can look and see where the rifle is hitting its target, and you can adjust the scope accordingly without having to run down and look at the holes. It's also used for hunting. If you've got some game that's too far away to see with binoculars or even your rifle scope, you could track their movement with this spotting scope. Now when choosing a spotting scope for birding, you have a couple of options. The eyepiece can either be angled, like this one is at 45 degrees, or it could be straight in line with the optics. Well, I prefer the angle one for a couple reasons. One is I'm pretty tall, so if I'm looking up in a tree at a bird and I have to have it my eye level, it's going to be the tripod's going to be really extended and it's going to be really high. So it makes the tripod a little less stable. And also, when birders go out, they generally go out as groups. We go out individually sometimes, but very often in groups. And usually only 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 5 people have a spotting scope. The rest just have their binoculars. So generally that person with the spotting scope sets it up and then shares. Other people come and look at it. So with the angle viewer, people of all different heights can take advantage of it. Now, as far as what type of birds we look at, that's going to be obvious if you're a bird watcher, but if you're not, you might be thinking the little sparrow or some kind of warbler up in the tree. You might want to get a close look at it. Well, that's going to be difficult because little birds like that move pretty quickly and they flit around. What we usually use this for is for larger birds that are going to be roosting or sitting in one place for a time or moving very slowly, and birds that you can't approach without, close enough to use binoculars. That will include owls, eagles, other raptors. Those are generally going to be, you're going to find them in a tree, kind of looking over their land, looking for lunch. And then with a spotting scope, you don't have to get very close to them. If you approach them with a pair of binoculars, very often by the time you get close enough to see them very well, they're going to take off. The other thing that we use them for is wading birds, herons and egrets and that type. Those are birds that move slowly as they look into the water. And again, you can't get very close to them. And they're pretty large birds, but you can see them. I've actually spotted whooping cranes in a sanctuary, and there was no way to get closer to them because nobody was allowed. But I could see them with the spotting scope. The other thing is ducks and geese and coots and birds like that are dabblers who swim very slowly, and you can see them. And again, if you're ever trying to approach a duck, a wild duck, in a pond, as you get close to the edge, he gets farther out. So that's where the spotting scopes works really well. Now, this does come with a nylon case. I don't use it. I have a bag that I use, and let me show that to you. Even though the scope comes with a nylon carrying pouch, I prefer to use my low pro scope bag. This has room for the scope, binoculars, my field guides, and a few other items. It has backpack straps so you can carry it into the field very easily, and it's padded. The scope fits all the way in there. I just pulled it out so you could see it. In conclusion, I really like this spotting scope, especially considering the price. Are there more expensive scopes and better scopes out there? There is. Go on Amazon and put in spotting scope and sort it by high to low, and you'll find scopes out there that are $6,000, and many of them in the $3,000, $4,000 price range. What are you getting for that extra money? Well, you're getting magnesium as far as the body, so it's going to be real durable, but it's also going to be heavier. You're going to be getting proprietary multi-coating, where this one does have multi-coating. You're going to get one that they invented themselves, that they have a patent on. You're going to be getting just a lot of other refinements. Extra low dispersion glass, which makes the image sharper and clearer. A lot of things like that. Now, do you need that? If you're a professional, yes. If you're a hunting guide, somebody taking hunters out, or if you're a bird watching guide, or if you're an ornithologist, you probably should get as much as you could afford. But for most of us, especially casual users, a scope like this is going to take care of you. When you look through this, you'd be amazed at how good the image was. I wasn't prepared for it being so sharp. Once I focused, the first thing I focused on was a stop sign, and it was about 100 yards away. When I focused on it, I was blown away. I mean, you could see the white letters against the red background, so sharp. So this is a great spotting scope for the money. I give it 5 stars. My name is Timothy Riley, and I hope that you enjoyed this review. Thank you.